What if everything beneath your feet wasn't solid rock, but an entire hidden world? For hundreds of years, explorers, scientists, and writers believed exactly that. They imagined tunnels leading down into glowing caverns, ancient civilizations living in secret, and doors hidden at the very ends of the earth. It sounds like fantasy, but some very serious minds once took it seriously. So, how did this idea begin? And why, even today, does it refuse to disappear? Let's go back to the beginning. The idea that the earth might be hollow is older than most people realize. Ancient myths from many cultures spoke of underground realms, places where gods, spirits, or the dead were believed to live. But the scientific version of this idea started much later, with a name you might not expect: Edmund Halley. Yes, the same Halley known for Halley's Comet. In 1692, he proposed something strange. He suggested that the Earth might not be one solid ball, but several hollow shells, one inside the other, each capable of supporting life, separated by atmospheres, and even lit by a kind of inner glow. At the time, scientists didn't fully understand Earth's density or its core. So to Halley, this idea wasn't crazy. It was an attempt to explain unusual compass readings and magnetic changes he had observed. That single idea planted a seed, and that seed grew. By the early 1800s, an American named John Cleves Simmes Jr. took the theory even further. He claimed the Earth had massive openings at the North and South poles, doors, in a way, leading down into the hollow interior. He believed explorers could sail right through them. His idea became known as Simms Hole. He even tried to convince the U.S. government to fund an expedition to find it. But why did people believe this? Remember, this was a time before satellites, before submarines could explore the ocean floor, before we had any real way to see what was happening deep inside our planet. The interior of the Earth was, quite literally, the greatest unknown place in the world. And when there's a mystery that big, the human imagination rushes in to fill the gaps. So the hollow Earth idea spread, not as proven science, but as a powerful what if. And it didn't stay in scientific journals for long. It jumped into literature. Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth imagined explorers descending through volcanic tunnels into a lost world. Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote about Pellucidar, a fictional world inside our planet. These stories weren't claiming to be true, but they made the idea feel real, exciting, and alive in people's imaginations. But here's where things shift from fiction to something stranger. Some people began to believe these stories weren't just fiction at all. Let's talk about the poles. For centuries, the North and South poles were among the most mysterious and least explored places on Earth. Almost nobody had been there. So legends started to grow. Stories of massive openings, mysterious green landscapes near the poles, warm air rising from the ice, and strange lights in the sky. And then came one name that conspiracy theories still use today: Admiral Richard Byrd. Byrd was a real explorer. He truly did fly over the North Pole in 1926 and the South Pole in 1929. A real and impressive achievement in the history of exploration. But here's where fact and fiction begin to blur. A conspiracy story later claimed that Byrd flew inside the Earth through a polar opening, and that he even kept a secret diary describing a hidden civilization and strange advanced beings living underground. This diary has never been verified. There's no credible historical evidence Byrd ever wrote it, and serious historians consider it a hoax. Byrd's actual expeditions were about mapping, aviation, and scientific research, not discovering an inner world. But once a story like that exists, it spreads, and it becomes very hard to stop. So why do these stories survive? Maybe because a hollow Earth is a comforting mystery. It suggests our planet still has secrets. It suggests there's more out there than we've been told. And for some people, that feels more exciting than accepted science. This leads us to two of the most famous hidden world legends, Agartha and Shambhala. These names come from a real mythology, not modern conspiracy theories, but centuries-old spiritual traditions from Tibetan Buddhism and Hindu belief systems. Shambhala is described as a mystical hidden kingdom, sometimes spoken of as a spiritual state rather than a physical place, associated with peace and enlightenment. Agartha appears in various mystical and esoteric writings from the 19th and 20th centuries as an advanced, hidden civilization living beneath the earth. It's important to say clearly, these are spiritual and mythological ideas, not scientific claims. But in the 1800s and 1900s, some occult writers took these ancient legends and mixed them with the hollow earth theory, creating an entirely new belief that Agartha was a literal underground civilization, more advanced than our own, hiding from humanity. This mixture of ancient mysticism, science fiction, and unclear history became incredibly powerful. It appeared in books, secret societies, and later in conspiracy culture across the internet. Some even connected it to claims about secret Nazi expeditions to Antarctica, though no credible historical evidence supports the idea that any hidden civilization or entrance was ever found. So we have to ask, is this history? Or is this legend dressed up as history? The honest answer is, it's legend, mixed with imagination, mixed with real history taken out of context, not scientific fact. But by now, you might be wondering something bigger. What does science actually say is inside our planet? This is where the story changes completely. For the truth about Earth's interior, we don't need myths. We have actual tools, and one of the most powerful is something that seems completely unrelated at first. Earthquakes. When an earthquake happens, it sends vibrations, seismic waves, traveling through the entire planet. Scientists can measure how these waves move, bend, speed up, or slow down as they pass through different materials. This is how we've learned, without ever physically going there, that Earth is made of layers: a thin outer crust, a thick rocky mantle, a liquid outer core, and a solid inner core, made mostly of iron and nickel. In fact, it was through the careful study of these seismic waves that scientist Inge Lehmann discovered in 1936 that Earth's inner core is solid, even though the outer core around it is liquid. That discovery didn't come from digging. It came from listening to the planet. So if scientists know all this, why haven't we simply drilled down and seen it ourselves? This brings us to one of the most extreme engineering attempts in human history, the Kola super-deep borehole in Russia. Starting in 1970, scientists tried to drill as deep as possible into the Earth's crust. It took nearly 20 years of drilling. And how far did they get? About 12 kilometers down, roughly 7.6 miles. It's an incredible achievement. But here's the surprising part. It's barely a scratch compared to the size of the planet. The distance to the center of the Earth is over 6,000 kilometers. In other words, humans have only ever touched the very outer edge of Earth's crust, not even close to reaching the mantle. Why did they stop? because temperatures at that depth rose to about 180 degrees Celsius, far hotter than expected, making the rock behave more like a thick, moving substance than solid stone. Drilling deeper became physically impossible with the technology available. So why is it so much harder to explore inside the Earth than to explore space? It sounds strange, but it's true. We've sent humans to the moon, and robotic missions to Mars, and even beyond our solar system. But we've never come close to reaching Earth's mantle. Why? Because space is empty, and gravity there is easier to work with. But going down into the Earth means pushing through increasing pressure and heat with every meter. Pressure's so extreme and heat so intense that no material we currently have could survive the journey to the mantle, let alone the core. In a strange way, the center of our own planet is more out of reach than most of outer space. So where does that leave the hollow Earth theory? Modern science, using seismology, gravity measurements, and geology, shows a planet that is layered and solid, not hollow, not filled with tunnels, and not home to a hidden civilization. There is no scientific evidence of a habitable interior world, and no verified evidence of polar entrances leading inside the planet. But even knowing this, the idea refuses to fade away. Why? Maybe because the ocean floor remains largely unexplored. Maybe because ancient myths still feel mysterious and meaningful. Maybe because ideas like Agartha and Shambhala speak to something deeper than geology. A human desire to believe that hidden wisdom, hidden worlds, or hidden truths exist somewhere just out of reach. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe humans have always been drawn to mystery, especially mysteries about the unknown places closest to us. So is there really a world inside the Earth? Science says no, but legend, imagination, and centuries of storytelling say the question is far from over, at least in the minds of those who want to believe. And maybe that's the real mystery here. Not whether a hidden world exists beneath our feet, but why so many people, across so many centuries, wanted so badly for it to be true.